Good morning. So, for the kids, I have a question. I actually have a few questions, and they'll all make sense together at the end. First, what are we? Humans. What else? Mammals. Okay, that's true. Fine. But more specifically, we who are here in this church, what are we? Christians. That's the answer I'm looking for. We're also Orthodox Christians specifically, but we're Christians. What does that mean? Just the word. What does Christian mean? It means you're an Orthodox Christian, that's right. But the word itself, Christian, just what does it mean? It means that you believe in God, but what's his name? Jesus Christ, right. But just the word Christian. Why are we called Christians? Max. Right. So it's just Christ's name and then a little ending on there that says we're followers of Christ. We're little Christs. We're imitators of Christ. Right? Just like you might call a Muslim a Mohammedan. They used to do that. I don't think they do it anymore. Or you might call a follower of Buddha a Buddhist. Right? We call a follower of Christ an imitator of Christ. Someone who is trying to be like Christ, a Christian. Yes? We were made to be like God. That's exactly right. We'll come back to that. Now, what's the first time you came to church when you were a baby? Sneaky. When you were baptized? That's close, but it's not actually correct. Right? That's the second time, well, more later than the second time, because hopefully you'd been to church several times before you were actually baptized. What's the first time you came to church? The 40-day blessing. That's right. Why do we do the 40-day blessing? Have you all seen the 40-day blessing? First of all, put up your hands if you recognize it. Okay. If you don't remember, you actually might not have seen it very often because usually you're in Sunday school when it happens. But what happens is, after a baby has been born for 40 days, they come to church on the closest Sunday, usually, the baby and the mom. And they stand in the back, and the priest goes out to the back, and he says prayers. Prayers for the mother to welcome her back to church because she's been gone doing the hard work of having a baby, right? And prayers for the baby who comes into the church for the first time on the 40th day, right? And then the priest takes the baby in his arms and hopes that the diaper isn't leaking, because that's bad for vestments. Come on, you can laugh. It's a poop joke, but that's okay. Okay. He takes the baby and carries the baby in and up to the icons and maybe around the altar table and blesses the baby and then gives the baby back to the parents. And then I say, do you know when you're going to do the baptism? And they say, yes. Or actually, we hadn't thought about that. I guess we should think about that. And then we have a conversation. So that's the 40-day blessing. 40 days after an Orthodox Christian baby is born, they come to the church. Maybe we need to keep you all around so you can see this once or twice. That would kind of be important because none of you know what I'm talking about. It's a nice little service. Well, you remembered yours? That makes sense. So, any idea why we do a 40-day blessing? Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you today and in the next couple weeks. On February 2nd, there is a big feast day of the church. Do any of you know what it is? Anybody want to make a guess? What do you... It's a big feast day, and that's right. On a big feast day, after you come to church, you eat a big feast. That's how we celebrate, but first we come to church. And we have to know why we come to church. Anybody want to make a guess what the feast day would be on the 2nd of February if I'm talking about the 40-day blessing? To pray. But pray about what? What do we remember? Because every other big feast day, we remember something that happens in Jesus' life. We remember that he's born. We remember that he's baptized. What do you think we remember on February 2nd, Dimitri? No, it's about Jesus. What do you think? Jesus was brought to the church. Bravo, Sue. Give the man a hand. We remember, oh, you took me literally. We remember Jesus' 40-day blessing because his parents did this too. They brought him to the temple on the 40th day after he was born, and they dedicated him to God. This is what it was for. The child was brought to the temple and dedicated to God. And that's why we come to the temple on the 40th day when we're itty-bitty babies. Because Jesus did it first, and we're doing the same thing that Jesus did. Because we're Christians. We're little Christs. We imitate Jesus. We try to do the same things in our life that he did in his life. And especially when we're starting out, he was brought to the temple on the 40th day, so we come to the temple, to the church on the 40th day. He was baptized, so we are baptized. And then the rest of it gets a little bit more complicated. But we start our life in the same way that Jesus started his life because we're Christians. We're little Christ. We're imitating Jesus. We're following him. And we'll talk more about it next week because I've gone on too long already, haven't I? You can nod. It's okay. Thanks. Now let's stand up and we'll take communion.